is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of 21 Question, the question and answer podcast, cold from the KCSN Discord. You're going to get questions about football, food, since it's the two of us, naturally. It's going to be food, music, life, you name it. We're going to answer it. And yes, there are a lot of questions about wide receivers this week. Here to help me answer them is my good pal and fellow KCSN host of Amateur Hour, Ryan Scott Hall. My friend, how are you doing today?
Greg, I'm fantastic. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Did you say cold or pulled?
Cold.
Look at that. I mean,
L-L-E-D. Look at
that's
that.
a vocab word. I like that.
See, I can get those words out for you.
Mm-hmm.
When I use those words on the lab, Kent and Maddie just, they give me all sorts of crap. Like
the football guys. That's the football guys.
I still remember using the word stanza a few weeks ago, and it blew their brains. Tertiary blew their brains like the middle of last year. I was like, guys, come on now. Normal vocabulary.
I think that Dirk purposely gets like figures of speech wrong just to see how I react. It's like a game
Twitch. Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. I should start doing it more and leaning into it and just watch them just fidget over there. All right. We're going to start this week's question with probably one of the biggest ones here from the KCSN Discord. Again, if you are not subscribed to KCSN Daily, you can go to kcsn.substack.com, get all sorts of film breakdowns, analysis, written word, and all of that, and access to this KCSN Discord, which is my safe haven other than Twitter on game day, because it's a little bit less reactionary. Maybe not right now. Coming from anti-lawman here, what did we all miss with Sky Moore? Ryan, what? How do you feel about Sky Moore? I know that you were a fan just the same as the rest of us of him coming out of college. What do we miss? What do you think?
I think right now, like I'd say we're grasping at straws a little bit, because there's a lot of things about him and the perceived fit in the offense like when they decided to trade down and ultimately Sky is the one that's left, it's almost like, man, they threaded the needle on this one because he was such a good match here. I'll say this. If anyone is not familiar with the profile on Sky Moore, he's a very grounded receiver, meaning he plays on the ground. He does not jump and make contested catches and things like that, which is why the throw from Mahomes is kind of frustrating last night. But Sky Moore was perceived as one of the best route runners in his class. Particularly, a lot of people talked about his releases off the line, being able to get open early in the route. And I feel like throughout most of the year, and I certainly don't watch as much tape as you do, or many of the guys over at KCSN, or how many, the level at which people understand the game. But what it's looked like to me throughout the season is that Sky actually does kind of continue to get open early in the route, but the Chiefs aren't playing quickly. And he's not often the first read. And so if he's open in the first second and a half of the route, but he's on the backside or whatever, Mahomes is looking somewhere else because of the design of the play, it's almost like Sky isn't really being played to his strengths, maybe. And I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm grasping at straws because I thought that it was going to be a really nice fit in the offense. And the way that they talked about him this offseason was pretty positive. I felt like him, and I'm rambling, bear with me.
No, you're good.
But I felt like he had such a great redemption arc in the playoffs too, that was going to launch him into this important offseason. And I mean, there was no reason for anybody to not be buying the hype because the Chiefs were selling it. They're laying it on pretty thick, man. And so
the defense was. The defense was. Yeah.
I don't know if they're as surprised as the Chiefs are. I don't know if Sky is just not a gamer. I don't know exactly what it is, but I got to a point last night after the game where I just straight up said, I don't care what the problem is anymore. The bottom line is that it's not working. Yeah. And so I'm kind of sick of the back and forth, particularly about Sky Moore. And some of it is heartbreak, sure. But like, it doesn't really matter why it's not working. It is not working, and I need to see something else, or I'm lose it a little bit.
And it's like you and everybody else. Yeah, yeah, it is. And it's especially on a week where guys like Alec Pierce and Christian Watson, the two picks right in front of Sky Moore, they have good games. George Pickens, that's been debated to death, but there was always that. Okay, well, they traded back. Tyquan Thornton goes, obviously a speedster, and then after that, there's a little series there. It's like, okay, well, Chiefs are going to get one of these guys, and I too sat there and went, holy cow, I can't believe they got Sky Moore. Sky Moore was the guy that I was hoping was going to be available when those guys were done. I think I think I agree with what you are saying here as far as where he is in the progression of things. I think a lot of these young receivers, and even some of the not so young receivers, when they're the first read, Patrick is having to dwell on them maybe a little bit longer to make sure that they're open, to make sure that they're running the route correctly and some of that. And then maybe by the time they get back to Sky Moore, if he was open, now he's not anymore. Or vice versa. If Sky Moore's the first read, there are a lot of instances where he's not open on time. Like maybe the route is supposed to break at 5 yards and it's breaking at 6 or 7, which is more of a, hey, who's coaching these guys? Who's getting them ready for game day? Who's holding them accountable for some of those things? It's just all kind of bad. And Sky Moore has this all laid at his feet right now for one reason or another. I actually feel the tides turning a little bit towards Marquez Valdes-Scantling all of a sudden. It definitely feels like the scapegoat for this receiver room has pivoted to MVS a lot more than Sky Moore over the past couple of weeks, but it's still there. So it's really rough to watch. I liked the profile. He was always going to be a guy that needed a little bit of time to develop, to get up to speed for an NFL game coming out of, a smaller school like he was. But I think we're seeing right now that development is just not occurring in Kansas City, just kind of room wide right now. So I don't know that it's a complete miss on Sky Moore yet, but it definitely feels like this organization and him, this offense, whoever it is, the first 2 years of this rookie contract are almost wasted from the expectation and the amount that had been put on his plate so far. And that sucks. That sucks to feel that way, especially about a guy you really like. Yeah.
Two things here. Like, number one, just on Pickens real quick, the thing that I think hurts the most is that his style of play is precisely what they're missing. Like, he keeps winning downfield. It's what his elite trait is, and the Chiefs don't have a downfield receiver. His physicality and everything, the way that he's such a ball winner. I really liked George Pickens.
Loved it.
Concerns aside, but you're talking about a 5-star guy that played at Georgia, and Sky Moore. The second thing here is that what I didn't mention in his profile is that he'd only played wide receiver for 3 years.
Yep.
And he did so at a directional school in Michigan. All right. So like, small school, and certainly a lack of seasoning at the position. Not that every high school coach is really getting these guys where they need to be either, but like, I think that you're looking at maybe a confluence of events here where he was inexperienced. He didn't get a whole lot of coaching. He's in the MAC, right?
Yeah.
I think they're MAC.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
And then he comes to this team and he gets a running back coaching receivers last year, and now a first-year wide receivers coach who played running back. And frankly, I have some questions about Connor Embry's resume. I love that Andy's willing to take swings,
sure,
and give these guys chances, but such an inexperienced coach with such an inexperienced group, you're hoping to catch lightning in a bottle there. That's can these guys feed off of each other?
Yeah.
And the answer is no. And so, like, they are going to have to pivot this offseason. And really, I have a question for you. Can I add to our list of questions?
Yes, please do. Yes.
All right. Craig, can the Chiefs build their wide receiver room, or frankly, even their offense, knowing the short leash of Kelsey's leash is not the right word, but the very
Time frame. It's coming up
of Kelsey's career? Like, is Rashee Rice the alpha for this team? Because if not, they have to find that guy for the rest of Mahomes' career. Like, they like Rashee Rice, but like, can they build this offense essentially around him? Or are they going into this offseason saying, we need the person that's going to play with Mahomes for the next 10 years?
I think that is the case. I think they need the person that's going to play with Mahomes for the next 10 years. And that's not an indictment on Rashee Rice. It's how they're using him right now. Like, again, like, against the Green Bay Packers, I believe everybody, kind of highlighting the fact that there was I believe it was 1 yard was hit the ADOT when targeting Rashee Rice. That's average depth of target. 1 yard. That's all it was. Green Bay was playing off. You're getting the ball into the hands of one of your best receivers and letting him run into the secondary. I don't have a problem with the usage, but it's been more of that than it has been, hey, Rashee Rice is running this full route tree. Hey, we can count on him to line up and beat man coverage. It doesn't really matter who's going to be up there against him. You can count on him to beat, non-top 10 corners time after time. That's not happening right now. So to try and push all the chips into the Rashee Rice basket this offseason and saying, hey, listen, we're going to be fine. We're just going to build the offense around him doesn't really make sense to me. I think he is an ideal / elite wide receiver too in this offense. Like, if you had another guy that you can count on to beat man coverage to the point where defenses don't want to play as much man coverage, even if Travis Kelce decides, hey, at the end of this year, I'm hanging him up, Rashee Rice is your zone beater now. Like, you got the guy that can go out there and win in those areas of the field, can run into the secondary, break tackles, create after the catch. That's exactly what you want him to do. I just think you need another guy to be able to consistently do that this year. And whether or not that's because, they're not trusting him to do that this year, and whether or not that's because, they're seeing less situational aspects where they can get him in some of those roles, if they just trust other guys in man coverage heavy teams. I'm not sure what it is yet. It's an incomplete grade for Rashee Rice based on the usage alone. But they can continue to use him that way, and I'm going to love him in Kansas City, all 4 years of his rookie contract and beyond. I just think that they need another guy. I think that they've got to prioritize going and getting somebody with a skill set that doesn't need to, quote unquote, develop. Go get the guy that already has that toolbox.
I think, so I'm going to ask you another question, Greg.
Hey, that's fine.
So if you think about, like, and let's just say an average year draft class, how many receivers? I don't care like where they end up getting drafted. How many receivers? What do you think is the hit rate on guys that can come in and like be a nuanced player like that don't just win in like one way or maybe two ways, but like what the Chiefs want? And sometimes, don't get me wrong, like there might be a guy that's billed that way that doesn't hit in the first round, and then some undrafted guy does. I'm just talking about bottom line, raw average data. How many guys are we looking at in an average cycle where the Chiefs even are trying to find that person out of the 50 or so wide receivers that might end up on rosters?
Yeah, maybe 3. Like, I know that seems very bleak, but that's kind of where it is right now. That's why the Chiefs don't have one on their roster. It was why one of those things when they traded Tyreek Hill, the reports are, who knows, reports well after the fact were saying that the Chiefs turned down, the Jets number 11 pick, I believe was what it was. It was right there, right on the edge of the top 10, not quite in the top 10. Turned down the number 11 pick to get volume picks. Yeah. I love Trent McDuffie. I love the fact that he is on this team. I am very ecstatic that he's there. This offense would look completely different with Chris Olave. who went number 11. Like, I mean, again,
now you're speaking.
I know. I'm just
Olave
saying,
was my dude in that draft.
Absolutely. But he had the nuance, the athletic ability, the skill set. He's playing in just a sad offense right now. So I know people are going to look at his stats and go, oh, what is happening right now? He's playing in a really sad offense right now. Chris Olave changes this team significantly on the offensive side of the ball. Now, defense isn't as good. Certainly isn't as good without having a Trent McDuffie, a true blue chip player back there. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I'm not saying one's wrong, but that's the level. That's where you got to be to get a guy like that in most drafts. So that's why it's so tough. Yeah.
This is the reason I asked the question, and we can probably put a pin in this here. I think that if we're all walking into this offseason trying to figure out like what is the path here? How do we get that guy? Can the Chiefs, try to replicate what the Falcons did when they traded up to get Julio Jones? Like, can they move from, maybe the early to mid 20s, depending on if they drop a couple games here? Can they move from that spot up into the top 10 or something? It will be very difficult, I think. And so that's where, if there's only going to be like 3 or 4 guys in a draft, maybe that can be that player, that to me says that the Chiefs are then going to have to start looking at other options and say, is there, a snowball's chance in hell of getting T. Higgins on this team, of getting Terry McLaurin on this team, of getting Brandon Ayuk on this team? Like, guys that are more established that you have to pay the money to. I think that might end up being the alternative. And who knows if they even can. If you got to give up capital and money, that's going to be really difficult because they're short on both.
Yes, absolutely. And it's why when you look at the way that this team, and this is more off-season, kind of building sort of stuff here, it's why when you sit and you start shaking out how the draft starts to go, these GMs have a good idea of who's going to be there and when, all of that sort of stuff. It's one of those, like the year that they traded the 1st and the 3rd for Frank Clark and paid him a whole bunch of money. The logic was, well, just trade up. It's such a good DE class. Just trade up. With those assets, they would have been able to trade up for Montez Sweat. And Montez Sweat would have been your guy on a rookie contract for 4 years. You've got to weigh whether or not that rookie contract was worth it, or getting the leadership, getting the ability of a Frank Clark was worth it. Certainly was worth it in 2019. It was for that first ring. Yeah, the rest of that you can debate and things like that, but that's where you got to lie. So when we're sitting here going, round 1 receiver, no matter what. Yeah, what if 4 of them go in the first 11 picks and you just don't have a snowball's chance of ever getting one? Like, you don't. So then what? And you've got to look around. You've got to see who it is, what sort of assets you can trade. A team not wanting to pay a wide receiver. Hey, maybe you're willing to trade them some assets and pay the wide receiver simply because otherwise you're stuck with the same wide receiver room that you have right now. And nobody wants that. So, okay. That's really good. It's really good.
How was your first deep dive, Craig? That was basically
it was great. I love that. I absolutely love that. All right, this is a great one here. AJ Plot 21 is kind of a similar argument that we were just having here. In hindsight, were we better off with a jag at right tackle, just a guy, meaning just kind of an average player at right tackle, and actually paying market price for an average proven receiver? What do you think, Ryan?
I think that it seems abundantly clear that Jawan Taylor, the minute they told him that he couldn't play the way that he's played for the last 4 years, that he was not as effective a player. The Chiefs paid handsomely for an elite pass blocker, and between the penalties and the pressures and sacks that he's allowed, he's not elite. He's not in that category right now. So that, to me, I would say is like their big issue. Here's the question, though. Like, who's the receiver? Because if I remember correctly, if I look back at that class, like, I mean, people are probably instantly going to jump to like Hopkins or something because he was actually on the street.
Correct.
But him and Odell were like
Yeah.
the marquee names. I could go back and look, but I really don't. Is there anybody that's on a new team this year that's like making waves out there?
I mean, Jacoby Myers has been pretty good.
Myers actually would have been nice. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a guy that I think actually moves the needle for this offense there.
If they do that, is he basically taking Sky Moore's job though? And they're coming into this season betting on the young wide receivers. Like that's what they did.
Hindsight 2020 and all that.
Didn't have Rasheed Rice.
Absolutely.
Jacoby Myers for Rasheed Rice, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead with Jacoby Myers. Let's just do it. Like, let's do that because he makes his football team better. In March, you're looking at this wide receiver room that Patrick Mahomes just elevated into, the stratosphere for most of the year, along with Juju Smith-Schuster. And you're going, okay, well, they're gambling on some young guys, and DeAndre Hopkins is still out there, and Odell Beckham Jr. is still out there, and maybe they can piece something together. So at the time, they didn't want to get into a scenario that they did in 2020, where Patrick Mahomes is running for his life behind a terrible offensive tackle class, or offensive line. That's what I meant. So you look at that and you say, okay, Clark Hunt is paying $500 million to one individual here. What makes more sense? I know that keeping him happy is going to be priority number one. Keeping him healthy is priority 1A in that scenario. So I'm always going to build through the trenches. I'm always going to lean on that. As a matter of fact, get ready in this offseason for me to be pounding the table again for left tackle. Like, I know what we saw from Wanya, but I'm open to a massive upgrade there, as long as it's not at the expense of some of these other things. So it is a fine balance there. I can see the avenue towards this. So.
Can I trade Jawan Taylor for Andrew Wiley and Jacoby Myers? Is that about the money?
I mean, I don't have them
value. I think it's
close. It's close.
And I don't know.
Now, here's the thing.
I don't know.
They do help Jawan Taylor. I'm not saying they don't help Jawan Taylor, but as the season's gone along, they haven't had to help him as much. Against the Packers this week, he got beat badly once.
Yeah, he's like been bad.
Yeah, he's not been bad. As a matter of fact, he's one of the tackles with the longest time to pressure in the league right now. So, I mean, you look at it that way, and it's like, okay, that's good. Then you remember last year with Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wiley, where we spent so much time talking about how they're having to help both tackles. They can't get 5 out in the route, and that sort of stuff. If you're having to help Donovan Smith or Wanya Morris, you want a guy that you can put on an island a little bit more regularly. Not saying that he's been great, but yeah, I don't know there. You're gonna love this question, and I do too. Mm-hmm. And I think that this individual saying it maybe a little bit tongue in cheek. You can correct me later if this is the case. Kyle C asks, is this team the most frustrating team that you have ever covered, Ryan?
No.
No.
The most frustrating Patrick Mahomes team? Sure.
Yes, absolutely.
But even, I don't know. I mean, how about definitely the most frustrating Patrick Mahomes offense? No question about that.
Yes.
But, I mean, it's every season has its fits and starts. And like, I think that the Chiefs were more frustrating the entire Alex Smith experience, mostly because you just knew. So like Patrick Mahomes, the way that he's having to play this season, like what we're all like waking up on Monday after the Sunday night Packers loss, what we're all waking up to realize is that the one turnover, albeit, very, very late in the course of this game, the Chiefs can't overcome stuff like that. They can't overcome one penalty in the red zone. It was 2. But regardless, like these tiny little mistakes, the Chiefs don't have everything they need to overcome that stuff this year. And so basically, Patrick Mahomes has to be perfect. And it's kind of like the opposite. I made this comparison a few weeks ago on Amateur Hour, and I don't know if everybody followed it, but I tried my best. It's like the opposite of what the Chiefs did with Alex Smith. Pat has to be perfect because everything else on the offense is like kind of a mess sometimes. And when Alex was here, it was everything else has to be as perfect as possible because we know these limitations of Alex. We need the defense to lift him up. We need the playmakers to lift him up. We need to have the best special teams in the league. We have to do these things to try to get to a Super Bowl. And now we're, unfortunately, even with, in my opinion, the best defense in the NFL and the best quarterback that's ever played the game and the best tight end that's ever played the game, I still think that we have found that Patrick Mahomes is not just like beyond reproach. Yes. The margins are too thin. The AFC is too competitive, and they keep drafting quarterbacks every year, and they all seem to hit. CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson both seem like they're going to be good players. They just got added to the field in the AFC. I mean, like, it's so stacked because of what Patrick Mahomes has been able to accomplish that the Chiefs, and thankfully they are, to me, a very aggressive front office. Mm-hmm. They are going to make a large number of things this season. They are going to be a large number of changes. No matter how this season goes, the writing is on the wall. A lot is going to change. They're going to be a very different football team next year. And I don't think that's necessarily due strictly to these frustrations. Some of it is just the timing. But I think that the way that Veach has attacked other positions, he's going to attack the weaknesses on this team. That's what he does. He's going to use the resources that he has at his disposal. They're going to be really creative. And I'm not even trying to put myself in the off season, but sure, it's frustrating. Yeah, doggone it, it's frustrating. It's the most frustrating Patrick Mahomes offense of his career. It's the worst statistical year that he's had, particularly when healthy, of his career. And I don't think it's really all that close. It's been hard. It has been really hard to watch.
And going back to what you were saying about the Alex Smith thing, it's why so many people now look at this offense and just say, we should run the ball more. Mm-hmm. Like, this team should run the ball. We as fans have been conditioned to, okay, everything's dink and dunk. Everything has to be, super efficient, perfect in the passing game. Let's just lean on that run game. Jamal's walking through that door, right? Oh, wait, damn it. No, he's not. Isaiah Pacheco's been pretty good this season. Don't get me wrong. I've been very happy with him, but Andy Reid isn't going to build this offense out of the run game with Patrick Mahomes back there and with Travis Kelce as a tight end. And no, this is not the most frustrating team I've ever covered. I covered this team back in 2012. And Ryan too. That was frustrating because it was hopeless. Like, you knew that that they were done. Like, that offense was garbage. We have spent so much time talking about how bad this Patrick Mahomes offense is. Buddy, that offense would have made the Los Angeles Chargers New England Patriots game this past weekend look stellar. Look like an offensive, kind of firebomb out there. That offense was terrible. That defense had so many good players on it, and they could not put anything together. And then there was a major incident that occurred at the stadium, and that was hell to cover. So every time we talk about, is this frustrating to cover? Does this suck to cover? No, I've been through those seasons. Those were awful. So speaking of things that are not awful, like the current Chiefs, and you like that transition, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back after this one.
That was great.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
All right, we are back. We got more questions here. We've made it through a solid, is that 2 or 3, Ryan? This is what happens when you and I get together, man. Having a great time. Apes of Spades asked the question, do you think there's a chance that MVS would have gotten the pass interference call if he was able to consistently show that he could catch a football even when there isn't a man being his human backpack?
There were some really good tweets that it was just like, I think they made the right. What was that? PFT, I think he said. He said that
it was uncatchable.
The flag. They targeted MBS, so there's no way that it was catchable. Yeah. I mean, get your jokes off. It's fine. I think that, as you said earlier in the show, Craig, like it does seem like MBS has kind of become the scapegoat a little bit. And I mean, it's weird that he's only been targeted like 30 times or something so far this year. Like it's so low compared to where he was at last year. It's been a bad year for Marquez, and I would imagine that he will be on the street in February.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you're seeing right there at the end of the game, you saw a lot of Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Some of that is because the Chiefs are running hurry up. Like you're seeing him out there having to coach wide receivers on where to stand, these young guys, which, man, watching the way that some of these wide receivers run these routes, drift, as they start to go downfield and things like that. I am seeing an awful lot of similarities between the way that MVS does things and the way that the Sky Moores do things, the way that, the Rashee Rices do things. Like, it's not great. So I know that some of that is rubbing off on him, but at the beginning of the year, beginning of the game against the Packers, this team's not using him as much. Like, there's a lot of situations where it's Kadarius Toney, Rashee Rice, and Sky Moore on the field together, and honestly, that's great. Like, lean into that more. I think that they're slowly phasing him out. I think that the lack of targets should tell you everything you need to know about where you see, Marquez Valdes-Scantling next year. So we'll see, but that seems like one of the easiest moves that the Chiefs are going to make this offseason. Just really
saves a big chunk of money. It's double-digit $1 million to release him, and very, very little penalty. He was brought in to stabilize the room, and he certainly contributed on the way to a Super Bowl last year, but I think it's clear that it's over.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, I like this one too. Just DRK asks, is the 2014 group of wide receivers that caught 0 touchdown passes better than this wide receiver group? For those who don't remember that wide receiver group, it's not great. Travis Kelce was still there. He led all players, 862 yards. Dwayne Bowe was on that team. Didn't have a touchdown, had 754 yards. Albert Wilson, Donnie Avery, Jason Avant, Junior Hemingway, AJ Jenkins, Frank Hammond. Those are a lot of blasts from the past, Ryan. I feel pretty confident in saying that this wide receiver group, despite all of our hatred for them, is better as a whole than that group. Would you care to argue as the resident Dwayne Bowe fan?
I mean, I'm just sitting there thinking about, how mighty have fallen, because we were walking into this season talking about the depth in the receiver room, and my goodness, we're gonna keep more than 6 for the first time in Andy Reid's life, and honestly, the name that really jumped off the page is not a wide receiver from 2014, but tight end Philip Supernom. Totally forgot about him. That's like deep in his Dirkness archives there. I have soft spots for Dwayne Bowe, Albert Wilson, and Donnie Avery. And Andy Reid loves Jason Avant. Honestly, part of me thinks that Jason Avant could be the Chiefs wide receiver coach. Like, that's like a type he played for Andy, Greg.
What's he doing right now? Hang on.
There's some stuff like that like Andy's got a few guys that he might want to reach out to. No, this wide receiver room, to me, like, Rashee Rice is a special player. I think that the ceiling on him, he reminds me quite a bit of Deebo Samuel. Just how kind of aggressive and explosive he is. I don't know if he is as good with the ball in his hands. But that's what they talk about. He looks like a running back once you get him the ball, and there's a lot of manufactured stuff for Debo, and let's run the drag. Let's run those, sometimes he'll get some deeper throws too. But I think that's like a ceiling for Rashid. But, I would say by 2014, Dwayne was probably heading southward. That was like year 6 or 7 for him at that point. And, he always loved Sonic. So
he did. What's I can't remember who told the story. It's kind of a old wives' tale at this point, where somebody asked him, how he gains separation, how he gets himself open, and all of that. No, Alex just needs to throw me the ball. I'm always open. Like I don't need to get separation. I'm always open. Like that was his mentality. And I mean, that's kind of the way that he played football. And not that that's a bad thing, but I look at this, and Dwayne Bowe is the only wide receiver on that list that is probably better than the rest of the Chiefs wide receivers. I know what we feel about the rest of these wide receiver groups. That Albert Wilson season, he had 260 yards receiving. Like, it's not like, I know we all remember him with Patrick Mahomes and what he kind of turned into a little bit there in Miami and some of his preseason stuff. It's not like he was lighting the world on fire. Like, no. And
he was Sky Moore before Sky Moore. That had some speed and seemed like he had some route running chops. Now he was undrafted, and Sky Moore was not, but also went to a small school. And, he just kind of put together a couple years, and like there would be this flash, and you'd be like, oh, there it is. There it is. I recognize that. Oh, and now this guy, they're just few and far between.
Yeah.
I like that. Albert Wilson, Sky Moore.
I know. It just kind of buries it. Just
works.
Hey, Sky in 2014, we all would have been talking about Sky as he went towards 260 yards receiving again. And shout out to our guy, his Dirkness, for Anthony Fasano was on that team. Or is he
Fasano?
That's right.
I mean, 2012, that season birthed Amateur Hour, and so 2014, like we're getting going in 2014. Yeah. Like we're feeling like vets by that time.
Yeah, we were born in the fire. We know what this is like. Yeah, that's what you were. Let's see here. Rugby Fox asks, "What's your favorite type of Christmas cookie, Ryan?"
Ooh, so I don't know what does and does not fit into the Christmas cookie category. But my mom, my mom always owned her own business. She was like she cleaned people's homes, wealthy people here in Kansas City. And so every year as Christmas gifts, she would spend like a week and employ my sister and I, and we would be making all these different types of Christmas cookies in these giant batches. And then she would, give a few of all the different kinds on like a big platter to each one of her clients. This is a thing my mom did every single year. So like we would have chocolate covered pretzels and those little, I think people call them like wedding cookies.
Yeah.
Whatever, things. They're like pecans in them, and I don't know, whatever. They tasted like flour to me. I never thought they were good. My mom did all these different things. And my two favorites that she always made at Christmas time were lemon bars, which I will take any time of the year. I don't know if that's a Christmas thing or not. One of my favorite desserts, period. She also made these things, and it was like pretzels and peanuts and like Chex Mix, and it had both marshmallow and peanut butter. She just called them like peanut butter balls, but they're like crunchy and just like a little chewy, like enough. It's not really a Rice Krispie thing. But, oh, man, give me anything peanut butter is usually where I'm at. And specifically the combination of chocolate and peanut butter is really like the perfect intersection of flavors for me. That's what I want. Any cookie that has nuts is probably a good thing for me, too. A big nuts guy.
Big nuts guy.
Yeah.
Everybody clip that.
Nuts guy. Yeah.
God, I could go for some lemon bars right now. That's one of my favorite things. I am not a big dessert guy, but lemon bars, oh yeah, I'll house them. And snickerdoodle cookies. Like I know that
Yes.
I know that that's not necessarily traditionally seen as like a Christmas thing, but man, my mom used to make them, and you know, I've been fortunate enough to know enough people that were really good bakers that made really excellent snickerdoodle cookies. Like I'm to the point now where I am so spoiled that when I get Jeff Allen's Cookie Society cookies, his snickerdoodle ones, I'm like, yeah, this is the level of snickerdoodle cookie that I've been having my whole life, and that's not normal. That is not normal, and just I love a good
Dude, Cookie Society is holy cow. Those things are profound.
Spoiled me, man. I got cookie shops around here, and I'm just like, nah,
No.
I can't. I go in there.
I get mine shipped in from Dallas, folks. Yeah. So what I find interesting about the Christmas cookie discussion is that maybe the chocolate chip cookie is just so universal that it doesn't have a season, but like that's what people leave out for Santa, right? It's chocolate chip and a glass of milk. Do you guys leave out cookies and milk? Your kids are that young, right? Like,
Oh yes.
Okay.
7-year-old to 2-year-old. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Do you guys do Elf on the Shelf?
No, thank God, because I do not have the cognitive capacity to move that every night.
Yeah, that's the thing that he has to move all the time.
Yeah.
Are you guys gonna like do you like make the cookies? Is it like a whole fam? See, that's awesome. Like, you know, I just got married. Like, I'm very excited to do all this family stuff. I was living alone for the last, 15 years or something most of the time. So we never had a Christmas tree. And now I put up a Christmas tree this year with the girls. And like, we've done all this family stuff. Last year we did gingerbread houses.
Oh,
So we're doing gingerbread houses again on Christmas Eve. That's like kind of our thing. And so, my stepdaughter's 14. And like, dude, the family stuff, loving that. So maybe we'll need to make our cookies this year, even if it's just like one of the packages or something, because we're not great at baking.
Sure, but still,
anything else, just don't ask me to bake.
it's the thing, and I've found here, and it's funny because like I'm super tangent here, but like with my 7-year-old, 2-year-old still a little too young to like help it, other than like, here, pour this into the thing and do that. But my 7-year-old really loves cooking. Now, if you ask her about it, she hates it. But it's one of those things that the moment she starts doing, I love this. I want to do this. I want to keep doing this. And so trying to get her more integrated into things like that, and has the side benefit of ruining the chance to be picky when food is on the table because it's like, hey, you made this. We're doing that a lot with, like holiday gatherings and holiday things like that. Just being able to say, okay, well, you're taking part in some of the preparations of this, small stuff. It's not like I'm saying, hey, you go baste the turkey. Take it on some of the smaller things, preparing a vegetable or something like that I know that she's probably not going to eat. Now all of a sudden she's participated in it. So, hey, I feel like eating this now. I'm going to try it because I had a hand in that. So trying to lean into some of that a little bit more. So
it's clever.
Every once in a while I have good ideas. All right. Nuja says, what's the overall consensus on how Wanya Morris performed in relief of Donovan Smith? What were your takes on that? I gave mine on the post game, so I want to hear.
I hardly noticed that Wanya was in the game. If the announcers wouldn't have told me, if they wouldn't have showed Donovan Smith on the sideline wincing, and it seemed like maybe it was kind of a hip to me, he did that kind of, I'm like touching my lower back, but it seems like it's maybe on the side a little. Let's see, I've made that move many times. This
morning.
I will trust Matt Lane's opinion, who has said that he was very physical in the run game, and that he didn't really make mistakes in the passing game. I think even on the sack, that came from his side. Dirk was like, you can't have this happen. And Mitch Schwartz was like, that wasn't his fault. So, I think that he was totally acceptable. Our guy Bear said, like, just start Wanya from here on out with what's to lose, really. If nothing else, you have one of your shopping list marked off this offseason, if it works out. And honestly, I'm kind of at that point. I don't think that, like, the difference between Donovan Smith and Wanya Morris is what would prevent the Chiefs from winning a Super Bowl. I don't think that change is so significant that it suddenly puts the Chiefs in a position where, like, well, we just got worse and we're so close to these other teams that we can't afford to get worse. I don't think that that's it. I mean, Donovan Smith, as a veteran, that being such an asset for him, I kind of thought that, like, he's not going to get penalized because he knows where to put his hands and he knows these ref crews and he knows how to do this, that, and the other. And that's just not the case, And when Donovan Smith has been healthy in his career, he's been average or slightly above. And when he's played through injury, he's been very bad. And so if he is not 100% healthy, then they don't need to put him out there because they have a young, hungry, athletic, powerful player that they need to figure something out about. So, I mean, that's the advantage of having a guy like Wanya on the team is we don't have to push Donovan Smith into the lineup.
Completely agree. But here, I'm going to counterpoint that just because I put this in the Discord and I want people to be thinking about it from the perspective of how Andy Reid treats players. If Donovan Smith is healthy and they have a choice between Wanya Morris and Donovan Smith, again, all things are equal in this scenario. And I'm not saying that they are right now. All things are equal in this scenario. Donovan Smith is 100% starting.
Oh, yeah.
Because Andy Reid is going to take care of that guy. He's on a 1-year deal. Wanya Morris has runway in front of him right now. Andy Reid wants Donovan Smith to go somewhere next year, get a nice, fat contract. He wants, again, not saying that he will. He's going to do everything in his power to put him in the place to go do that. We can talk about Orlando Brown Jr. and how his time ended with the Kansas City Chiefs and all of that. Andy Reid, in this same scenario, is putting Orlando Brown Jr. out there and trying to have him have the best possible season so that he can go get his money. Andy Reid talks about it all the time. Like, his job is to help these guys make money. And so he's going to do that for Donovan Smith. So keep that in mind as they come down the stretch run. I'm with you. Like, if Donovan Smith is a little bit banged up, rest him. Get him healthy. Yeah. Let Wanya run for a little while here. And then when things are equal, again, equal, we'll see how the Andys judge that. But if things are equal, Andy Reid's going to run Donovan Smith out there so he can try and get that contract. So
he's a player's coach, man.
He is a player's coach.
That's
a positive thing.
Means sometimes.
And again, I know everybody's reaction is just going to be, hey, well, then Donovan Smith's going to cost him all. Again, I'm saying all things are equal here. He's going to play the guy that he believes can get a bigger contract, even if he's like, hey, listen, this is probably better for us long term if Wanya plays. He's still going to treat the players with that sort of respect there. All right. Nick Johnston asks, what season had your favorite AHPKC intro? Which was your favorite to do? Because I can tell you that every year is my favorite. Like, every single time you create a new one, I'm like, I can't believe that we're treated to this.
Well, I think in terms of keep in mind that we never had anyone's permission for any of the things that we did. Ever. Don't ask, don't tell on our intros. I think the one that Dirk and I probably liked the most, I don't even know that it had anything to do with like my creativity. But we had, for a while, we were using this mashup that a DJ did of Tame Impala and Kanye West. And this was before Kanye had really lost his mind. And these were like two of our favorite things to listen to. And so this mashup was really awesome. And then I believe the year that episode 7 of Star Wars came out, we took the like tiny little build up at the beginning of Star Wars before you actually get the whatever. We put it all together. That was really fun. Of the ones that I have like rewritten lyrics, this year I don't find myself like wanting to listen to the intro over and over, because it's a cappella and I feel weird. I like doing the Burger King song parody. But I would say that probably the song that I want to hear all the time, that like kind of lives rent free in my head, is either last year's, the September, was really good, but I also really liked Louie Louie.
I liked that one too.
Amateur Hour is the best podcast in the world. And we just, honestly, most of those were me doing my own deep dives and just like trying to tinker with language. I'm an English teacher, so it was fun to just kind of rewrite lyrics to songs and see if I could make it work. But by the time I was done with like 12 takes trying to get it right, I'd be hoarse. And I'm like, I don't even know how to sing anyway. Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway. But yeah,
I love it. I absolutely love it. Plus now, when you guys are doing live stuff, now you're sitting through the intro live.
Well, we've always,
I know you guys did. Yeah, you did. You sat through it, but you're live, and now it's okay. We're going into it. We're live, and all of that. It's a little different beast. Yeah. So anyway, so it is. Steve Gray says, "Do you guys have a nickname for Rashee Rice yet?"
So Dirk has been like workshopping the Chiefs Cake menu, the Chiefs Cake Factory, because Andy is known for having all these different plays, and they always talked about how it was a menu. And so he's been doing all these food-based nicknames on offense. You've got Clyde Edwards Eclair, you've got Jerk McChicken, we've got Kadarius Rigatoni.
Is my favorite.
Is just, I mean, it's in another stratosphere of nicknames, and I just absolutely love everything about McKinnon and McChicken.
Yeah.
I don't think that we have one for Rice. I will say that I find myself, and some of this is my buddy Steve rubbing off on me, but like I find myself when he makes a play, I just want to be like, Rice, baby. Yes. Like, cause it's just easy. I called him Rice Bow, which is not anything other than me just trying to point out that he is Dwayne Bowe in a lot of ways. I don't know what it's gonna be. But man, there's something in there somewhere, and most of the time the nicknames come from Dirk, and so I'm sure he is probably still kind of workshopping. You don't want to rush it. You don't want to rush these things.
No. It's got to come natural, because when you rush it, you don't get the Jerk McChickens,
right? You know what's ridiculous is I think everybody on the planet spent like 3 seasons trying to figure out what Mahomes' nickname was going to be. And none of us call him anything other than Mahomes. No. Like, that's it. It's sometimes it might get Patrick becomes Pat or Patty, Levon, I get, sure. But like Showtime, that came and went, on things. Dirk kind of called him the kid. But nicknames are fun. I like nicknames.
It is. I know in the Discord, just when you !Rice, the bot in there just posts a whole bunch of rice emojis in a row. Like that's all it is at this point. And everybody just likes to do that, especially when like me on YouTube TV is seeing things approximately half a day later than everybody else. It's fun to watch and see everybody get really excited about a Rashee Rice play. And then it turns out it's like a 9-yard gain or something. I'm like, you guys just really like using the chat. I see how this is.
I think honestly, there's more potential in Rashee than there is in Rice. Like,
I would agree with that.
We're tempted by Rice, but I think that the real playground might be Rashee potentially.
I would agree with that. Casey from KC says, when is the last time you guys actually attended a game at Arrowhead? I know when my last time was. It was with you at the AFC Championship game against the New England Patriots that ended in overtime in Patrick Mahomes's, that same year.
No, that's
No?
not right, Craig.
Is it not?
I think the last game that you and I attended together would have been the Houston divisional round game when we were down 28 in 2019 or 24.
Oh my goodness. I was conflating that with the same year. I thought that was earlier on in the playoffs. You're absolutely right. It was the Houston game.
The Houston game, which I have on my wall, you can't see it, but it's up there. But yeah, when the Chiefs were down 24-0 to Deshaun Watson whatever that
he was doing it
pre-predatory actions.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was probably the best sporting event I've ever been to in my life. Actually,
that was really fun.
Hey,
there's a couple sporting KC games that might rival it, but it was up there. A lot. That was fun.
We're down 24-0 in the first quarter, and it hasn't even settled in yet. You haven't sat down yet. Yeah. Haven't even had a chance to take a breath, and it's Dirk and I and you and Bear with the four of us, and then they are up at halftime. And
yeah,
I at halftime go out onto the concourse and ran into a guy that I grew up around, who's one of my best friends, his older brother, and the game was so crazy that we didn't even have the oh my god, hey, let's have a hug. We saw each other and we're just like, holy shit.
Can you believe it? Yeah.
Wild. Exhausted at halftime from that roller coaster. It was wild.
Is that the last one you went to though?
The last Chiefs game that I attended, actually, I think that was the last game at Arrowhead. The last game that I attended was out at SoFi with Dirk. When Travis Kelce ran off in overtime and he had 180 and 2 touchdowns or something. Absolutely sensational game. I believe that was 2 Decembers ago. Mm-hmm. That was really great. Honestly, dude, the problem with having a guy like Patrick Mahomes and winning 2 Super Bowls is that it is so expensive to see a Chiefs game.
It is cheaper for me to go watch them here in Denver than it is when I was in the area and could actually go to Arrowhead when I wanted to. It was it's ridiculous.
Unless you're doing really well financially, it's a really big commitment to get out there, to pay all that money and to give up really an entire day. It's a lot.
And then on top of that, now I'm doing post-game shows and covering the team and stuff and now all of a sudden it's just one of those man, it's a whole lot of things that got to be in place.
Yeah,
to get me out. I'll get back out. I will. My time is not over with that, but definitely just kind of enjoying all of that right now. Mm-hmm. And that's going to transition us into the last one here. And I'm going to look at this one kind of holistically here because Christian Gumminger, our guy who's in charge of the KCSN Foundation, this is a massive week for the KCSN Foundation. We've raised a ton of money for the Soul of KC. Looking forward to, getting to spend that money on kids, holiday gifts, all that. Wonderful. We thank you all so much for your donations. I can't wait for all those raffles to happen because there's a lot of awesome gifts and there's going to be a lot of people that are very excited about it. But the best part for us is all the donations and being able to give back to the community in a meaningful way here. Christian Gumminger says, talking to me specifically here, how's Colorado? Is it easier taking a loss when you have beautiful landscapes to look at? I'm going to reverse this just a little bit. That's a good question. Losses now are so much different for me. Yeah, they're frustrating. I get being angry. I get being frustrated. I understand the fan frustration. We talked about 2012. Been covering this team since 2009 when Todd Haley and Scott Pioli showed up. And, buddy, there was all kinds of hype around that team and what they were going to do. And finally, it's time. I was born the year that Todd Blackledge was drafted in the first round, and it scarred this organization so much they didn't take a chance on another first-round quarterback until Patrick Mahomes. Like, it has been a roller coaster ride for me as a fan. Seeing 2 Super Bowls is like, for lack of a better term, a beta blocker. Like, I don't get as low anymore when that all happens. Yeah, I'm mad about it. It is what it is. It's so much easier taking a loss, not just because I get to go do the things that I'm moved out here to go do. It's so much easier because we finally got over the hump. And not just once, but twice. Like, Patrick Mahomes is going in the Hall of Fame. Andy Reid's going in the Hall of Fame. This team has multiple Lombardis from this generation of players. It is really hard for me, and will be, if the Chiefs bow out of the playoffs, will be really hard for me to be as angry as I used to be about this team, if that makes sense. I used to just be incensed after this sort of stuff, and now it's kind of like, man, that sucked. It's a good thing that this team has won a whole bunch lately, and especially championships and especially rings, because otherwise it would suck a little bit more, but it doesn't. Like, so I don't get as low anymore with some of that stuff. So I don't know about you though. Like, I don't know how you feel about that, if you're still having the same kind of fan reactions that you did back before.
Well, there is this, like, very guttural sense of satisfaction, deep down in the loins, because we've won 2 Super Bowls. And so at the end of the day, it's hard to muster up maybe the same level. And this, we talk about this with athletes too. And Dirk and I are always in peak physical condition. So, I like to draw that comparison, but I think,
I don't know what you're talking about. You guys are peak physical condition, both of you.
I think that what it boils down to for me, how it's changed, is that now, because of those Super Bowls and because of that infrastructure, my expectations are very high. And most weeks I walk into the game, and so do the Sharps in Vegas and everybody else, thinking the Chiefs are the best team in the league. The Chiefs are the betting favorite to win the Super Bowl. They're the betting favorite to win basically every game on their schedule. And so it's a different kind of disappointment, Like, there was a certain expectation about what the Chiefs could and could not accomplish pre-Mahomes. And now what he's done, delivering these Super Bowls, now any season that they don't win a Super Bowl is kind of a disappointment.
Yeah.
It's a very, very different thing.
Yeah.
And when you're desperate and trying to reach that pinnacle, and you get, I say so close, but God, we didn't even win a playoff game for.
I was going to say there it is.
But just all of those losses, how catastrophic they felt, particularly the playoff blunders. They hit different for sure. But now you're almost just like you feel like a parent a little bit. And it's I'm not mad, I'm not mad, but I am disappointed, guys. Right. You kind of have to like try to use logic on them occasionally so that you're not just spanking or whatever, I guess I just, my brain has shifted post Super Bowls, but to actually try to attempt to answer Christian's question. If I were living in Colorado, Christian, that is precisely the thing that I would need to cheer up, is the scenery. But out here in whatever this place is called, my subdivision is like River Oaks. I take a walk.
Sounds like you got a river and an oak to look at the very least.
It's fine. Grandview is nice. Nice enough. And there's a former golf course in our property. So I could just I walk around, that's what I'm a walker, right? That's how I usually try to get those things off. I think that Dirk has many times pre-Mahomes after a playoff loss, like stumbled around drunkenly in the snow and kicked people's trash cans and like done things worthy of amateur hour. And I don't think he does that anymore. He probably walks to the beach, though, like Christian is suggesting. Dirk is now, he gets to just like walk in a mile and he's staring at the sunset in the ocean, and he's got 2 Super Bowl rings and he's just happy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it really does kind of shift it. I think the Patriots broke our collective fan brains for a little bit there with the amount of success. And now it's to the point where we're thinking about Patrick Mahomes and this Chiefs team as, man, wouldn't it be nice if this team were to supplant that dynasty? Be the one. Like, I just be the one that's able to do some of that. Patriots went 10 years without winning one. 10.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not like everything was all sunshine and rainbows for them all the time. They had several different iterations. There was a point where they too went all in on offensive weapons and it really paid off. Like, there are going to be shifts in dynamics in the NFL. That's just the way that it is. It's about continuing to create, about continuing to modify and adapt. And Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and doggone it, even Steve Spagnuolo have gotten really, really good at that. So they're in good hands. We know they're in good hands, and helps thinking about it that way a little bit more when you're thinking about it moving forward. That's going to do it for 21 questions for this week. I thank Ryan for joining me. This was a really great one. Love getting to talk to one of my best pals out here, especially in this format, about the Chiefs, life, everything like that. So thank you, buddy. If you have not looked, make sure that you're tuning in. The KCSN Foundation, we're going to be posting a video of, our time at Dick's Sporting Goods buying toys for these kids. If you can watch that without crying, I don't know what's wrong with you. So get in there, be anticipating that. We're going to put that out there. That's always a good thing that we're always very, very proud of. Thank you all so much for listening to this over an hour podcast. Be kind to each other, and we will catch you later.